All right, in this video, we're going to look at solving equations. And what we're going to start looking at is we're going to start looking at multi-step equations. So multi-step equations are equations that are classified, or we would classify them as having more than two steps. So we've looked at one-step equations in the past, two-step equations in the past. So anything that kind of goes above that, we just generalize it with the name multi-step. Multi-step equations, we're going to start with the distributive property. So we will use the acronym below to help us remember our steps. So an acronym is kind of just a reminder. An acronym you might remember from the past would be PEMDAS for the order of operations. Ours doesn't have a nice ring to it, but it has a small phrase. So we're going to use don't call me after midnight. So don't call me after midnight. So DCMAN. The first start is going to be on D for don't. So like I started in the beginning, we're going to start with the distributive property. So the distributive property. The distributive property is a property we've learned in the past. It's a multiplication property, and it allows us to distribute a value amongst multiple values. So again, we're going to start with beginning. Just as a reminder, we're going to remind ourselves of the distributive property. So we use the distributive property to simplify. So we're going to simplify using the distributive property. In example 1, 3 times the quantity x plus 5. So what we're doing is 3 times everything in the parentheses. 3 times x, 3x, or I said 3x, but this really is 3 times x. When we have a number next to a variable, we have multiplication. Just a quick reminder. I'm going to use this symbol in the parentheses, which is addition, and I'm going to distribute the 3 to the second part of the parentheses. So 3 times 5. And I'm going to do that multiplication 3 times 5, which is 15, and I'm going to write 15. This is as far as we can go with the distributive property here. I cannot combine those terms because one term has an x value, the other term does not. So 3x plus 15 is as far as I can go with this expression. B, 5 times the quantity 2x minus 3. So we're going to distribute this 5 to the 2x and to the 3. So 5 times 2x, 10x. So 5 times 2 is 10, and I keep that variable 10 times x, or 10x. I'm going to bring down the subtraction as a minus, and then I'm going to distribute the 5 to the second part. So 5 times 3. Now, I don't have to worry about this subtraction sign because I've already brought it down. So 5 times 3, again, gives us 15. One common error we see with the distributive property amongst those that are using it, we forget to distribute to that second value. So students or sometimes want to write 5 here instead of 15. So we got to distribute to the second value. The 5 had to get distributed to the second value. So we want to be really conscious of that. And the next one, negative 4 times the quantity m minus 2y. So negative 4 times m is negative 4m minus negative 4 times 2y. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And then I bring the y with it. Now, we don't like this minus a negative. So subtracting a negative, we're going to remind ourselves, becomes adding a positive. So I'm going to just write this as add a positive, or add the opposite. So I'm going to rewrite this as negative 4m plus 8y. And again, not like terms, so this is as far as we can go. So let's throw the distributive property into an equation. So remember, our goal at the very top here was multi-step equations, meaning we want to solve an equation or find the value of the missing variable. So if we come back here to example 2, solving equations that contain the distributive property. Don't call me after midnight. Don't call me after midnight. Distributive property is the first thing we want to look for. So if I look at this equation, our goal is to isolate the variable, find the value of x. That would make this equation true. Just a reminder, we can now solve this equation because it's equal to a value. Before we couldn't, there were no equal signs in the above examples. We were just distributing, but now we can solve. Because I see this distributive property, that's what I want to handle first. So we're going to do 2 times x plus 2 times 6. 2 times 6 is 12. I'm going to bring down my equals 24. So all we've done here is we've eliminated our parentheses by distributing that 2. Now this should look familiar. This is a 2-step equation. I have 2 operations, multiplying and addition. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to box our variable term. And we're going to draw our line. A very familiar process to us. We box the variable, so we keep that alone. We don't do anything with the 2x yet. We want to undo this adding 12. To do that, we need to subtract 12 on both sides. Remember, we have to do everything on both sides of the equation to keep it balanced. 24 take away 12 leaves us with 12. And on the left side, my plus 12 minus 12 will undo each other or eliminate each other. And I'm going to bring down my 2x. My last step is to get rid of or undo the multiplying by 2. So to do that, we will divide by 2 because division is the inverse of multiplication. In doing so, the 2's will cancel, leaving us with x equals 12 divided by 2, which is 6. 6 is the solution to our equation. If I plug 6 in for x, 6 plus 6 is 12. 2 times 12 equals 24. So it is, in fact, the value that makes the statement true. Letter B. First thing I look for again is, can I distribute? And in this problem, I see parentheses with my distributive property. So I'm going to go ahead and do so. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Minus negative 5 times 3. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Equals 60. Just like before, I see this minusing a negative, so I'm going to change it to adding a positive. You could rewrite the problem if you wanted to, just for clarification, or we can just change it right there. Box my variable and draw my line. All right, so remember, this isn't adding 15. So to undo adding 15, I need to subtract 15 on both sides. 60 minus 15 is 45. Bring down the negative 5x. Negative 5x. All right, I want to undo my multiplication of negative 5, so I'm going to divide by negative 5. My negative 5s. Now remember, since this was a negative 5 with the x, this also needs to be a negative 5. That way the negatives cancel and the 5s cancel, leaving me with x equals. Positive divided by a negative will be a negative answer. 45 divided by 5 is 9. So this will be a negative 9. And just like before, I'm going to check that answer in my equation. So negative 9 minus 3 is negative 12. Negative 5 times negative 12 is a positive 60. And that is the beginning of our multi-step equations using the distributive property. So the first part of don't call me after midnight.